So, how woke is obliterating the video game industry? That's a pretty bold title, right? But is it really? Is it really that bold to say something like that? It's the same pattern that we've seen in every subsector of entertainment. Video games were once all about escapism, creativity, pushing the boundaries of technology, and of course storytelling. But in recent years, we've seen an increasing trend of hyper-political and ideologically forced narratives that are just creeping into the industry. And of course, simply we could call it woke, but it's more than that. But for our purposes today, let's stick with that name, that moniker. And now it's not just the games suffering, it's the people behind them. The massive amounts of layoffs that are sweeping through some of the biggest companies in the industry, including Ubisoft, which we're focusing on today. We're going to look deeper into how the forced narratives might be driving the video game industry off of a cliff, leading to job losses, toppling revenues, and of course, creative crisis. But this seems to be mirroring itself in television and film as well. Let's start here with Ubisoft, one of the giants. Recently, this once great studio laid off over 500 employees, and it's not the first time. These were, of course, fixed-term contracts, and that's a common practice in the industry, but the scale of these particular layoffs were unprecedented. The company cites financial losses, which are self-created wounds in this case, at least for this company, and a shift to people more focused on online gaming as reasons for this restructuring. But let's not overlook the big old elephant in the room, Ubisoft. Many other companies have been increasingly focused on pushing political narratives and ideologies into games. Worse yet, they've pushed them into the HR and hiring practices. Could it be that those decisions are alienating their core audience, leading to financial downturns and ultimately job cuts? Stepping back to look at the whole picture here, this isn't just a one-off incident. The video game industry as a whole actually is facing a crisis. Companies are losing their identity, straying from what made them successful in the first place. And when you prioritize ideology over quality gameplay and storytelling, you risk alienating your audience. Now, for a company like Sony, who seems to be suffering this situation right now, this leads to financial disasters like Concord, a game that we've been covering extensively on my other channel, That Gameplays, which you can find right up there. And the stakes couldn't be higher at this point. The loss of jobs isn't just a number, it's real people with real skills, or at least some of them are, and they now face an uncertain future. The loss of money, though, is staggering. It's quite possible that this is a $200 million loss for Sony's Firewalk Studios, a situation that would normally be called a studio killer. That's not good for any company. These layoffs and losses could signal the beginning of a downward spiral for the industry as a whole, actually, if it doesn't course correct soon. And these incredible financial losses could be leading to the decimation of the total number of studios. But let's return to these supposed austerity measures here. Why were these employees really laid off? Sure, there's financial losses you can point to, and the need to restructure, that's part of the equation, but we got to dig deeper. The push for online gaming is one thing, but when you add pressure to inject every game with hyper-political content, when you go woke, you lose the majority of your core audience that just wants to play great games. The console and PC gamers have been there. They've done that. They've seen woke compromised titles for the last several years. They're familiar with the playbook that goes along with that, being called names and not even being allowed to criticize any given game, especially something like Dustborn, which is complete trash. Worse yet is that even the studios know this. They know nobody wants to play these games, but they continue to do it anyway. Let's use, for example, Take-Two Interactive. They actually had to acknowledge in writing in a filing for the SEC what their risks were with their upcoming titles because of, well, the things that are being done right now to them. And specifically in that recent federal filing, they cited negative reviews for their Grand Theft Auto game, GTA 6, and that if they get those, it can hurt their sales dramatically, which is kind of telling. And forgive me for what I'm saying here, if I'm incorrect, but I think I know what we're all thinking when it comes to that kind of a filing or those kind of statements. This game is going to be stuffed with all of that compromised political garbage, right? I mean, let's stop pretending that that's not a bad sign, because it absolutely is. It's a terrible sign for a game that should be worth at least a decade worth of gameplay for everybody, just like the most recent one, GTA 5. Companies are trying to appeal to a small but vocal group, while ignoring the broader fan base that made them successful in the first place. And this shift is not only hurting their bottom line, but it's also hurting creativity and freedom that once defined this particular industry. And as all evidence points to the fact that this mythical modern audience doesn't actually exist out there, why are they still catering and pursuing it? Now, some might argue that the industry is simply evolving and that embracing new ideas and narratives is part of that evolution. But isn't that what we've been hearing about film and television for nearly a decade? And it's not gotten any better, and it's actually losing viewership. There's a difference between natural evolution and forcing ideology into every aspect of a game. While you prioritize an agenda over the actual game experience, it starts to feel beyond disingenuous. It's pandering for the sake of power and virtue signaling, which makes absolutely no sense since you don't have consumers that want these things. Worse yet is the overall result, of course, which is customers turning away, a drop in profits, and then another round of layoffs, if not something more drastic. Is this really about progress, or is it about catering to a specific ideology at the expense of what made the industry great in the first place? Want to see that in bold, stark relief? Take a look at Ubisoft and its diving stock value, especially over the last few quarters. Ultimately, in the end, these layoffs are a symptom of a larger problem in the video game industry. It's time for these companies to take a step back, reassess their priorities. I mean, shouldn't the focus really be on creating the best games possible rather than pushing a specific narrative? I think your investors would actually appreciate that, and you're supposed to be serving them as well, aren't you? If you're a fan of video games, it's important to make your voice heard. Support developers who focus on quality and creativity over ideology, like, well, the folks making Wukong. And if you've been affected by these layoffs, please don't give up. Network, update your resume, and do all the things you need to do to outline your set of job skills so that another studio will find you valuable and hire you. The industry can turn this around. They still can, but it'll take a collective effort by both creators and fans alike, pushing them to do the right thing. I don't know that that's possible, but let's hope. And now we've reached the end of the video. At least my part of the video anyway. It's now time for yours. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. And, well, while you're down there, do all the YouTube things for me, please. All I ask is that if you like this video, you give it a thumbs up. Check down there, make sure you're still subscribed. If you're not subscribed, and believe it or not, that's still about 70% of you, please go ahead. It's free. Also, turn on the notifications as well so you don't miss anything. You don't want to miss the live streams or other videos. And finally, share this video far and wide. That is the last ask, and it's the most important one, because it gets my video in front of folks that wouldn't normally see it. Everywhere from Facebook to Instagram, from X to Threads. It's very important to me, and please, it will help. As always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya!